Southpaw's back in the barn. Right, next stage of work on this is going to be, I'm going to sort out the rubbers on the rear axle. So, got to get the back end up in the air. Right, before I start on this, I thought I'd actually do something which I failed to do the first time round. I'll measure from the floor to the wheel arch, yeah, centre of the wheel arch, through the hub, which I'm more or less doing now, and that's coming up just shy of 34 inches, 33.5 inches. That's offside rear. Measure offside front, that's 31.5 inches. Near side front, 31.75, and near side rear, 34.5. Okay, so those are the measurements we're working to. Do you think post-Brexit Spain's going to want all its ground back? Good grief. That's steaming, by the way, because I've just been cutting the head off the bolt that holds the back bumper on, because it was just irritating me and I couldn't get it undone, and I don't know what they'd used to do it up, so I just cut it off. Which is fine, happy enough with that. Fucking amount of sand under it though. That's just ridiculous. These bumper bolts are proving a bit difficult. So this one was a spinner. So the captive nut had unseized, had unwelded itself, and it was just spinning. You can't get to the damn things, unfortunately, once they start spinning, because they've got this ridge either side of the bumper, very helpfully. And then this one, you can see the nut in there. See, it's solid. And I've just rounding the head off on the other side. I can't get enough of a grip on it to snap the bloody thing. So I'm having to go in through the bumper. There's no real loss on this bumper. It's going to be weighed in anyway, and just cut the mounting off. Which is a pain in the backside, really is. But we're getting there. And it's off. Minor amount of swearing going on with this, but I managed to retain the nice big fat washer, which is so often, more often than not, missing when he comes to do these things. I'm going to see if I can get this retaining strap undone on the top of the bumper, but otherwise that's just a big pile of scrap down there. Wash some of the sparks off the back of the car. Yes. It's a step forward, isn't it? Let's see if that comes out of there now. That's it out. It's happy to move out now. Bastard thing. Quite a lot of sand on the back here, oddly enough. Right. We move forwards a step. Tim? It's off. Right, next I need to get this tow bar off. And I'm trying to work out, it looks like they've just bolted it straight through the rear chassis rail. That's going to be easy enough to get off. They've not even used the correct mounts here. So that's dead easy, I reckon. Straight away, tow bar off. It's not a particularly attractive one, this one. Looks very homemade. One of the off-road boys might like it, I don't know. We'll see if we can flog it, get some money back on this project, eh? Yeah. Woohoo! I don't know why I couldn't get these bloody coach bolts out. It's because they've got sleeves in them and he's put them in bone dry. So the bolt's actually seized up. Seized up solid in there. I was going to have to cut it off, I think. If I cut it off close to the wing. Worst comes to the worst, I can weld a piece over this wing anyway, it's not a huge problem. The other thing I noticed while I was down here, amusingly, I bet this thing, let's get under it properly, and not all the sand, I bet this thing was a right bastard to fill up with fuel. Fucking look at that. Talk about crimped pipes, I mean that is flat there. I'll get you a decent hose. I'm going to have to be quick here, but I managed to get the lock reconfigured so the key works on all 8 barrels, or all 8 levers, with the original, sorry, with the key that works with the doors and the ignition. So there's the key in the locked position, only moves a tiny bit. There's the key in the unlocked position, moves a bit. There you go, tailgate locked. Fixed. One key for the entire car. Oh yes. Driver's side rear calipers come off. It's got a fairly typical problem here that the metal surround has disappeared. The pistons don't look in bad shape, but there's a lot of contamination on this brake pad, and I think it's going to be brake fluid as well. So I think this caliper has been leaking, which ain't great news. Still, passed an MOT, can't be that bad. That's easy then. A pair of new rear calipers, please, sir. They're not that expensive. These metric ones, you can just get pattern parts. They're type approved for this particular car. It's not worth pissing around with them. Good grief. Behold, I've actually taken something off this car now that's serviceable. This rear damper, with a 2-inch lift, fucking works. Beautiful. It's too tall for the car. Bushes are all shagged out in it, of course, but decided that that may well be brake fluid, but that is hub oil on this one. Rear hub's leaking, so the hubs are going to come off anyway, because the other thing I've noticed is I'm not sure that disc can get any thinner, and the one on this side isn't much better. It's thicker, but the other one's knackered. Right, I'm going to get these springs out next. Let's get this other damper off and find out what he looks like. Too busy talking to my dad, and I didn't have the jack underneath this side, and I undid the fucking damper and it shot down, and I've properly flattened the end of my finger. It's not off, I can still feel the end of it, but there's quite a deep gash on the back of it. Be careful out there, kids. Be careful. That fucking hurts. Now, luckily it was my left hand. Shit's sake. I should have had the jack underneath the diff, you see, to hold it up. What then happened was, as I undid the damper, the spring extended. So the spring's gone down to its lowest level. And that's what's caused the problem. Oh, dear me. Broken a sweat, I tell you. Dear me. Oh, it's throbbing now. That's good. But it's kind of sliced right across the back, underneath kind of the joint of my finger. I've wrapped about 4 plasters around it. Tried to clean it up as best I can. What an arse wipe. That's stupid, Richard. That really is stupid. Because I did this side and I was talking to Dad about the damper. And then we started doing the other side while he was talking to me about going on his holidays tomorrow. And I just wasn't concentrating. Concentrate, people. Concentrate. You have to concentrate. Right, so lowered the axle as low as I possibly could, supported it with all the tension from the springs on 2 jacks, which is what I should have fucking done when I was undoing that damper, and then undid the nut on the fulcrum pin, the A-frame fulcrum, gave it a few hearty good taps with Mr. 3-pounder, and he popped out, sprung out. These springs though are still under tension, so what I'm going to do next, I think, is jack the chassis up from the back end here, leave the axle more or less where it is. I don't think I'm going to be able to get these trolley jacks out now, so I'm just going to jack the back end of the chassis right up, then hopefully that'll take the tension off the springs and they will just fall out. I don't want to go anywhere near these fucking things until the tension's off them. So in order to do that, I've got this nice little bit of kit here. This is my standard big old CD jack, and this little fella came from CJ Autos, and it just drops into the pin on the end of the jack. It makes it very, very useful for jacking both sides of the chassis. So we'll position him roughly in place. We'll go back down again. End of finger has breached the plaster. I'm going to have to go and take a break in a minute and give it a proper clean up. I'm a little bit worried about it though, because I don't like the sight of the blood. Right. Get these 2 pads underneath the chassis, pull him back a little bit. So we're just going to go on the, wants to come out a tiny bit, just don't want it touching the fuel tank. There we go. Right, now I'm coming out from underneath the car now. I'm Because obviously if anything calamitous happens, I don't want to be anywhere near it. We're on autofocus. Right, so jacking the chassis up. What I'm really looking for now is the tension coming of those springs. I get in there. I move them now. They're big fuckers though. They really are fucking monsters, these springs. It's clear. That one's trapped in there somehow. Pissing thing. Right, I work out getting that out. I guess one spring's out. So these backy springs, that is a lot of coils on that. Let's go and get one of the other ones. Quite a difference, isn't there? There we go, axle's out. Easy enough, wasn't it? At all. Right, now, what's left under here is the A-frame, which I'm probably not going to... There's a wedding today in the church. They've just started the bell ringing. The bride's actually ringing the bells. They've got to get them all in sync, get all the bells up so they ring up. There they go, and get in now, then they'll start peeling in a minute. Takes a little while, a bit of clanking. Get them all so they're upside down, and then they can start. I shan't be firing at the angle grinder while they're doing the wedding in the church, that'd be a bit mean, wouldn't it? Got to get the axle number off this, because I want to use it as ID. Give it a good pressure wash. Replace the hub seals. That's what's leaking on both sides, I've decided. Probably isn't the calipers, but the calipers are not in especially good order. That is fucking pissing out, that is. I'll have to go and change my dressing in a minute. Both these calipers are very tired. Braking system, rear brakes, disc thickness 12mm minimum. 12mm, okay, right, so we've got trusty vernier set to the millimetre range. Let's look at this one first of all. 8. Okay. Fuck's sake. And then we're going to look at this one. 11.9. But that's got a ridge on the end, so that's less than 11.9. How does this thing pass an MOT? I don't understand it. Clean up. So I'll work on the axle today. I'm not going to get underneath and do the A-frame. The A-frame needs to come off. In order to do that, I've got to... There's the A-frame dangling there. There's two big arms which go out and bolt off. Let's get into there and have a look. Hey. So nice big arm there which goes into that bracket there, and there's one on the other side which you can see clearly. These bolts are always an absolute and utter bastard to get undone. That one I can get the impact gun, windy gun on it. This one I think the exhaust is going to be in the way, so see how tight it is. May end up taking the exhaust off. And then there's 4 bolts up there, and the whole Bose strut and everything comes down. You can see the gate has come off on the bottom of the Bose strut. So I'll check that the Bose strut is working. I'm pretty sure it is. In fact, we can tell. No, the Bose strut is dead completely. You shouldn't be able to move that at all. So I'm going to have to find you a Bose strut as well, Tim. Otherwise, this thing's going to handle like a pig. Oh, that's a disappointment. I was rather hoping that was going to be serviceable. I don't think I've even got one. I think all of the units I've got are on cars or dead. Axle. So I'm just draining the oil because I'm going to get the hubs off, replace the discs, check the bearings. I've taken the spring plates off and noticed something interesting with those. I've popped them in the barn already. But the spring plates wasn't a piece of broken off spring. It was the actual edge of the spring plate has broken free of its weld and moved. I'll be able to hammer that back up again. Just put a tickler weld on the back there. Sorry, there's a bit of claret there. Put a tickler weld on the back there, and then just secure that back in. It'll work. This has stopped hurting now. Still throbbing, but it's still. I'm just going to have to leave this plaster on. It's quite tight, but we carry on working. It's the old Dunkirk spirit, isn't it? Yeah, fair amount of oil in there. It's not come out with any water, which is good news. It's always bad news when you get water in a differential. Found the axle number. That's nicely in place. 32S07902A. I'll have to look at what that means. I don't know. Right, I think we've probably got enough oil out of this now. I'm just going to pop these plugs back in, and then I can get on with the. Yeah, that's a fucking horrible mess, that is. I thought I had a bit of paper just now. There it is. Let's move that out of the way before I kick the whole bleeding thing. There's a big old dent on this diff pan, but I don't think it's going to affect it. It's well clear of all the gears and everything in there. I have rotated the axles and didn't hear anything untoward going on. So I think the only possible impact is it's going to reduce the oil capacity in the sump very, very, very slightly. Because what you do is you just top these things up until the oil comes out of the fill hole. There we go. I'll pop that back in again now. Right, let's get this hub apart. So you've got the drive plate on the end here, which on these rear axles is attached to the drive shaft. So the drive plate, drive shaft, all one big unit. So just going to windy these off. Windy them on. Put your bolts back in the wrong box. I don't want that. These things are all covered in bloody silicone and shit. Look at all that crap on there. Right, nice smell of burning silicone. Right, now we've got that off. It's just a case of leaving the drive shaft forwards. There we are, the drive shaft's come out. We'll pluck it underneath because it's going to drip a couple of drops of oil, I'm sure. And then the whole drive shaft comes out. Failed there on the bracket. There he goes. I'll go and store that somewhere safe. Right, now we've done that, we need to get the lock nuts. So the hub nuts are here, and there's a nice big locking tab, which I'm just going to bend back the right way. Using my very best wood chisel. There it goes. Good big box spanner. Goes on the hub nut itself. And then they just undo. So you see they're not medievally tight. They don't need to be. The lock washer does the securing. And we take the lock washer out, you replace these things. If you're absolutely desperate, you only need to use 2 of the 6 sides on the lock washer. So while you don't want to reuse kind of the bits that have been bent over already, there's nothing to stop you using the other side. But I tend to replace them. They're pennies. And then we'll remove the second nut. And on this one you can see it's actually got the spacer fitted. Whoops, there goes the second nut. It has actually got the spacer fitted. Now we've undone those two, it's just a case of pulling the hub, the whole hub and the disc forwards and off the axle, off the stub. And in the front here, we've got the spacer, the bit that was missing on the front, then behind that's the bearings. So I'll show you how to strip these things down and how to clean them up. But behind here, what we've got is the stub axle. Now, all of this gloop around here is because the seal on the back of this hub, and I'll show you that in a second, has failed on this joint here. Probably because it's been in sand, and then sand's got up to this area, and it's just chewed the seal up. Okay? So I had to take these off anyway to replace the discs, because they're terminal. Right, so let's go and now get all the bearings and shit out, inspect the bearings, and get the discs off. Woohoo! Right, here we go. Hubby McHub face. Spacer comes out. Behind the spacer there's an oil seal on these type of hubs. There isn't on the ABS hubs, or at least I've not seen one on the ABS hubs. It could be that my ABS hubs have been completely abused. One moment. We're going to clean all these bearings up before we go absolutely medieval on them, but I just need to get this seal out. Arf, arf. Oh, he's properly in there. Let's position him underneath there. Fuck my boots. That's tight. Don't know why it's tight, but it is. It's probably fine. It's been fucking glued in. There it goes. Right, there's the seal. Arf, arf. And then behind that, we've got the outer bearing. Okay? We'll give that a clean in a minute and inspect it for wear. Now I'm going to assemble these so they go back into this hub in the right order. And I just need a Jubilee, I just need a tie wrap. Oh, there's one here, look at that. So we've done the outer seal. We'll just inspect the seat to see if there's any obvious signs of heat damage or lack of lubrication. It seems to affect the back axles less than the front. I'd say it's quite badly worn. Might need new wheel bearings on the back. Right, we'll do the same thing on the reverse. So here's the reverse. There's the oil seal that's failed. Okay, you can see all around the inside of here, it's just full of axle oil. Same trick. You can get proper bloody seal removal tools, but they do exactly the same thing as a claw hammer. The alternative you can use is to drive the screwdriver, your very, very best painting opener, down behind the seal, and then there it goes, and then edge him out. I'm still going to need the fucking claw hammer though to get him out. There we are, he's out. And that's the rear oil seal that's failed. And then we've got the rear bearing. So we'll put these together like this, and we'll clean these up in a minute and we'll inspect them. So we know which way round they go. And then all we then need to do is separate the hub from the disc. And again, that seat looks spectacularly tired. I think it's going to end up being a waste of time even cleaning these wheel bearings. I'm just going to put new wheel bearings in. They're not horrendously expensive. They're easy enough to fit, especially when you've got a press. Right, in order to get the thingy out of here, I use a windy gun. If you haven't got a windy gun, there's 5 nuts in here. Get the right sized 12-point socket to go on them. And then what I then do is either use a jemmy to go through the stud holes to brace it, or stand it in the wheel. So if I put it upside down in the wheel rim, put the wheel rim on the floor, put this inside the wheel rim from the inside, and then the wheel rim's got enough mass to be able to hold it. Right, let's get the disc off. These are kind of dirt cheap Bergen. I use them for drifts more often than not, but it may do it, it may just round the fucker off. We'll see. Shouldn't need much talk. Let's check this is a 12 pointed socket it is. Yeah, that's easy enough. Sometimes these are thread locked in, and while that's not really a huge problem, they should come out relatively easily. There should be little washers underneath them, split washers. Ouch, fucking fingers out and just stabbed it into the edge of the disc then. Right, now we've got the 5 bolts out. Thank you, Mr. Windy. Now we need to separate the hub from the disc. So this part here is disc, this part here is hub, and the join is at the bottom there. So sometimes you can press them. More often than not, I just give them a bit of percussive maintenance. But I'm not going to use the big hammer on the face where the oil seal goes. I shall use the big hammer on the disc. As the disc is sacrificial. At this point, there we are. Hub and disc, which is now scrap. So we'll just get a whole new disc and we'll bolt those up. Now, the hub's going to get a really good clean, I think, and I think I'm going to put new wheel bearings in as well. So I've just got one more to undo, and then I can start ordering parts to reassemble. Yes. That's easy enough though, isn't it, eh? I can go in the scrap pile. I mean, look at all the oil on the back of there. I don't know how that passed MOT. I don't know how this car passed MOT. Got the radius arms off. These things, they're never easy to do, so I end up cutting the bolts off. Luckily, both bolts, even though one of them was spectacularly dry, did come out. Now, the issue I've got is the holes on the axle should be a relatively snug fit for the bolt. Got maybe 1 millimetre of play in that. It's enough. Once it's torqued up, that's good, yeah? Then we come to this side. That is like a dick in a bucket. Shouldn't be able to do that. So when I put it on there, that's how much play I've got on that end. The other end isn't too bad. So I'll put the bolt through the other way round. That's, I would have thought, okay. So what I'm going to do, I've got a good big washer. I'm going to weld it on there. Clean up the surface, weld it on centrally. And just take out some of the play. The reason this has worn like this is because it wouldn't have been tight. Right, now, I think we've done enough of a strip down for this. I'm going to go and press those bushes out now, for now. Maybe get a pair of beers while I'm thinking about it. That's not been bad, considering I've lost off my fucking finger. Right. Well, both hub seals are blown. I'm surprised the diff gasket hasn't blown as well. The breather banjo bolt completely bunged up, as is the breather hose. Completely, not even slightly clear. So that's why too much pressure inside of the axle casing has then gone through the weakest point of resistance, which in this case has been the hub seals on the far end there. So I'm probably going to have to take the stub axles off and just check the gasket, not the gasket, but the seal that's behind that because it could well be it's blown the gasket behind the stub axle. But that's a job for tomorrow. I'm not doing that now. Beer, that's what I was going to do next, wasn't it? Right. Pushed out the bushes, put in new poly bush on the radius arm, both of them, they're done, ready to go back on again. Need a pair of bolts and a little bit of welding. What I thought I'd show you though, is how to get the bearing seats out of these hubs. So, basically the bearing seat there is the shiny part, it's the shiny ramp, and that's a spare part. You can see the lip at the bottom one there, and that's the key part. So the lip around the inside there, and all I'm going to do is present my drift face tool up to that lip and just give it a tap. And I'm just going to work on opposing sides. That was my fucking finger then. It's not moving. Let's move it down a little bit. That's going. I just upgraded the hammer to something with a bit more momentum. Right, it's almost out. If I look in there, you can see that the bottom ring, right down there, the bottom ring, is almost completely out. It goes, and it's out. Oh, just one more tap, and it will be out. We're going to have to do it. There we are, it's out. And that's the bearing seat. Okay, and you can see on here the damage I was looking at earlier. Let's find a clothy McCloth face. But on the inside here, you can see the rollers run around this track here, and you can see where the rollers have sat for a while, and you can also see an overheated element on this edge here, so it's a slightly different shade. Should be shiny and all round. I think they're just worn out. I don't think there's anything particularly sinister with that. They do wear out over a period of time. So we've got one of them out. Now we need to repeat the process with t'other. So now when I look inside, you can see the step that bearing sat on, or the bearing seat sat on. Then below it, down there, you can see the other bearing seat. So just moving down, because I'm resting my hand on the edge of the hub, and as I hit it, I can feel it go down, about 3 or 4 millimetres at a time. There we go, he's out. There's the other hub. A bearing seat, sorry, I should say, shouldn't I? Let's have a quick clean up on this bastard. And similarly on this one, you can see where the track is just completely shagged out on there. It's gone through the case hardening by the looks of things on the outside edges where it's overheated. Yeah, I'm not going to be reusing those. Might make some nice earrings though. So that's those two done. I've got another pair to do on the other hub. Clean these up, put new discs, put new bearings in, and reassemble them.